Edward Thorndike's groundbreaking work in psychology paved the way for our modern understanding of human behavior. His pioneering research on learning theory and intelligence testing not only challenged prevailing notions, but also forever altered the educational landscape. Get ready to uncover the fascinating life and legacy of a man whose discoveries continue to shape our world today. As we delve into the life of Edward Thorndike, it's essential to explore his early years, which laid the foundation for his future work in psychology. Born on August 31, 1874 in Williamsburg, Massachusetts, Thorndike grew up in a family that valued education and encouraged intellectual curiosity. His father, Edward Robert Thorndike, was a Methodist minister, and his mother, Abby Ladd Thorndike, was a former teacher. This upbringing instilled in young Edward a strong work ethic and a passion for learning, which would serve him well throughout his academic journey. Thorndike's educational path began at the Wesleyan Academy in Wilbraham, Massachusetts, where he excelled academically and developed a keen interest in science and philosophy. He then went on to attend Wesleyan University, graduating in 1895 with a degree in English and history. However, it was during his time at Harvard University, where he earned his master's degree in 1896, that Thorndike became fascinated with psychology under the mentorship of William James. James's influential book, The Principles of Psychology, had a profound impact on Thorndike, shaping his thoughts on the nature of consciousness and the human experience. As Thorndike continued his academic pursuits, he began to focus on the study of animal behavior, which would eventually lead him to develop his groundbreaking theory of connectionism. This theoretical framework posited that learning occurs through the formation of connections between stimuli and responses, a concept that would revolutionize our understanding of the learning process. My colleagues in the field often remark on the elegance of Thorndike's connectionist theory, which he meticulously developed through a series of experiments with animals, including cats, dogs, and even chickens. One notable experiment, known as the puzzle box study, demonstrated how animals learn through trial and error, forming connections between their actions and the resulting consequences. In this study, Thorndike placed animals in a puzzle box, which they could escape only by performing a specific sequence of behaviors, such as pulling a lever or pressing a button. By measuring the time it took for the animals to escape, Thorndike showed that learning occurs through a gradual process of connection formation, rather than through sudden insights or intuitive leaps. This work not only shed light on the mechanisms of learning, but also laid the groundwork for the development of behavioral psychology as a distinct field of study. As Thorndike's connectionist theory gained traction, he began to explore its implications for human learning and education. His work at Teachers College, Columbia University, where he served as a professor of educational psychology, allowed him to apply his theories to real-world educational settings. One of the most significant contributions of this period was his development of the law of effect, which posits that behaviors followed by a satisfying consequence will be strengthened, while those followed by an unsatisfying consequence will be weakened. This concept, simple yet profound, has had a lasting impact on our understanding of motivation and learning. My experience with clients has shown me time and again how the law of effect can be used to encourage positive behaviors and discourage negative ones. For instance, in the context of education, a teacher might use praise or rewards to reinforce desired behaviors, such as completing homework assignments or participating in class discussions. Conversely, undesirable behaviors like disrupting the class or bullying peers would be addressed through constructive feedback and redirection. Thorndike's work also intersected with that of other notable psychologists of his time, including John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner. While Watson's behaviorism focused on observable behaviors and dismissed the role of consciousness, Thorndike's connectionism emphasized the importance of mental connections and associations. Skinner, who built upon Thorndike's work, developed the concept of operant conditioning, which further explored the relationship between behavior and its consequences. The relationships between these pioneers of psychology are fascinating, and their interactions often influenced the trajectory of their research. For example, Thorndike and Watson engaged in a series of debates about the nature of consciousness and the role of environment in shaping behavior. These exchanges, though sometimes heated, contributed to a deeper understanding of the complexities of human behavior and learning. Despite the significance of his contributions, Thorndike's work was not without controversy. Some critics argued that his theories oversimplified the complexity of human learning, neglecting the role of social and cultural factors. Others felt that his emphasis on individual differences and mental measurements led to a narrow focus on intelligence testing, which could be used to justify discriminatory practices. These criticisms notwithstanding, Thorndike's legacy continues to inspire new generations of psychologists and educators. His work on connectionism, the law of effect, and intelligence testing has had a lasting impact on our understanding of human behavior and learning. One notable example of Thorndike's influence can be seen in the development of modern educational technologies, such as adaptive learning systems and personalized instruction. These innovations rely on algorithms that assess individual learners' strengths and weaknesses, providing tailored feedback and guidance to optimize their learning experience. This approach, rooted in Thorndike's connectionist theory, recognizes that each learner brings a unique set of experiences, abilities, and motivations to the educational process. As Thorndike's work at Teachers College, Columbia University, continued to gain momentum, he became increasingly interested in the application of his theories to real-world educational settings. One notable example of this was his development of the curve of forgetting, which described how memories decay over time if not reinforced. This concept, though simple, had significant implications for educators seeking to optimize learning retention and minimize the loss of knowledge. To illustrate this idea, Thorndike conducted a series of experiments in which he tested learners' recall of various types of information, such as lists of words or mathematical formulas, at increasingly longer intervals after initial exposure. By analyzing the resulting data, he was able to map out the characteristic curve of forgetting, demonstrating how memories tend to fade rapidly at first, before stabilizing at a lower level of retention. Thorndike's work on the curve of forgetting also led him to explore the concept of distributed practice, which suggests that learning is more effective when spaced out over time rather than concentrated into a single session. This idea, now widely accepted in educational psychology, has important implications for the design of instructional materials and the scheduling of classroom activities. In addition to his work on forgetting and distributed practice, Thorndike was also interested in the role of motivation in learning. He recognized that learners are often driven by a complex array of factors, including intrinsic interests, extrinsic rewards, and social pressures. To better understand these dynamics, Thorndike conducted a series of studies on the effects of motivation on learning outcomes, using techniques such as surveys, interviews, and experimental manipulations. One notable finding from this research was the importance of goal setting in motivating learners to achieve their full potential. By providing learners with clear, achievable goals, educators can help to focus their efforts and enhance their sense of accomplishment, leading to increased motivation and engagement. This idea, now a cornerstone of educational psychology, has been widely applied in settings ranging from elementary education to corporate training. Thorndike's work on motivation also brought him into contact with other notable psychologists of his time, including John Dewey and Edward Thorndike. Dewey, a pioneer in the field of progressive education, shared Thorndike's interest in the role of motivation and interest in learning, and the two men engaged in a series of productive exchanges on these topics. Thorndike, a prominent figure in the development of behavioral psychology, was also influenced by Thorndike's work on motivation and incorporated many of his ideas into his own theories of learning and behavior. Despite these fruitful collaborations, Thorndike's work was not without its critics. Some educators and psychologists argued that his emphasis on individual differences and mental measurements led to a narrow focus on intelligence testing, which could be used to justify discriminatory practices or limit opportunities for certain groups of learners. Others felt that his theories oversimplified the complexity of human learning, neglecting the role of social and cultural factors in shaping educational outcomes. As Thorndike's work continued to evolve, he became increasingly fascinated with the concept of transfer of learning, which refers to the extent to which knowledge or skills acquired in one context can be applied to another. He recognized that this was a crucial aspect of education, as it spoke to the very idea of whether learning could be generalized beyond the specific circumstances in which it occurred. To explore this question, Thorndike designed a series of experiments in which learners were taught various tasks, such as puzzle solving or language skills, and then tested on their ability to apply these abilities to novel situations. One notable study involved teaching students a set of arbitrary rules for classifying objects into different categories. The students were then presented with new, unseen objects and asked to categorize them according to the rules they had learned. By analyzing the results, Thorndike was able to demonstrate that the extent to which learning transferred to new situations depended on the degree of similarity between the original learning context and the new situation. This finding, known as the identical elements theory, suggested that transfer of learning is most likely to occur when there are identical elements between the two contexts. Thorndike's work on transfer of learning also brought him into contact with other prominent psychologists of the time, including Charles Judd and Edward Guthrie. Judd, a leading figure in the field of educational psychology, shared Thorndike's interest in the application of psychological principles to educational practice, and the two men collaborated on several projects related to curriculum design and instructional methods. Guthrie, a pioneer in the development of behavioral psychology, was influenced by Thorndike's ideas on transfer of learning and incorporated them into his own theories of conditioning and behavior. Despite the significance of Thorndike's contributions to the field of psychology, his work was not without criticism. Some scholars argued that his emphasis on the role of identical elements in transfer of learning oversimplified the complexities of human cognition and neglected the importance of more abstract factors, such as understanding and insight. Others felt that his experiments were too narrowly focused on specific tasks and failed to capture the richness and diversity of real-world learning experiences. In response to these criticisms, Thorndike undertook a series of new studies designed to explore the role of more complex cognitive processes in transfer of learning. One notable example involved teaching students to solve problems using analogies, which required them to recognize relationships between abstract concepts rather than simply applying rules or procedures. By analyzing the results, Thorndike was able to demonstrate that learners who were able to form abstract representations of the problems they were solving were more likely to exhibit transfer of learning to new situations. That's all for today's Psych with Sigmund. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, may your ego find balance between pleasure and reality.